there's no such thing as spiritual maintenance. There's spiritual growth and spiritual decay. If you're stagnant, you're falling behind.
Coasting perseveres through marriage, and it's really, how can you lead in a relationship? Thank you for joining us today, everybody.
Hi guys, my name's Chris Bulick. I'm a Philadelphian in the greater Philadelphia suburbs, the northeast part of the map, in a small town called Southampton. We're about 10 minutes away from the city limits of Philadelphia. I've lived here all my life. A lot of factors of my, personality. I'm a big football fan. I played, football in middle school, high school. I was a wrestler for middle school and high school. Played baseball, hockey, soccer. The only sport I didn't play was basketball because I'm 5'7", so I was never the tallest guy. But I love basketball still. It's one of my favorite sports, even though I never was able to participate in it very well. Yeah, love sports. I used to be an artist. I used to really love to paint. I was a graffiti artist in my youth. Luckily, I got away from that before I got into any real trouble, but I did still take some licks. Used to love watching Bob Ross, trying to recreate some of his stuff. I love Bob Ross so much because he's able to teach others how to create true masterpieces. Mm-hmm. Now I'm a podcast host. I got a show called The Good Faith Podcast. And we're growing. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. We shoot live episodes where we talk about faith, family building, finance, fitness, which I think are kind of the 4 pillars of what makes a man: is your spirituality, your health, your wealth, your relationships that you build. So, we got 30, I think 38 or 39 episodes, and we're growing, and my 9-to-5 career is I'm a life skills coach for a private school for autistic kids, and I'm part of the adult life skills program. So once they age out of 12th grade or something, and they're college age, they come to our program because a lot of them are not necessarily equipped to go to regular college. So they come to us, and we take them to volunteer or jobs, and we help them with grooming, help them with hobbies, and take them to the gym. And I'm kind of they laugh at me at my job, call me the drill sergeant or the boot camp instructor, because I'm the one that really pushes them in the gym to run faster, lift more, and stuff like that. But honestly, I'm very impressed by, my guys, how they have, grown in their fitness journey. Some of them can lift so much more than me. I can lift my body weight, which I'm pretty proud of, but some of them can lift my body weight and much more, and make it look effortless. And I only have an associate's degree in liberal arts, which I don't know. You could ask most economists; they tell you that that's virtually useless. So I think that my path in life is going to need to be multifaceted. I'm not going to be able to get rich, which I'm determined to be. I'm not going to be able to get that way just working a 9-to-5 and then shutting my brain off and turning on the TV at 5 o'clock. I'm going to need to have side gig, and so I have during the football season, I'm a photographer and face painter for the Philadelphia Eagles. I got this podcast that I'm hoping turns into a moneymaker. I'm also a value investor in the stock market, and I have this little this site called Mercari, where I take old clothes and stuff like that, and resell them on Mercari to try and generate extra income. So
I was going to ask you, what or why did you start the podcast? Was it just a moneymaker, or do you have a message?
Well, honestly, I'm the same reason why I joined Men of Action is why I started the podcast. Like I'm a natural introvert, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but also an alcoholic in recovery, and so like most alcoholics, our natural default setting is to isolate by ourselves and just like seek instant gratification and comfort through a substance, and so yeah, so I by being reclusive for 20 years, I made a very small circle of friends that like I don't have a very large network right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I started the podcast because I want to branch out and like expand my network, and I thought that would be a good way to do it.
Nice. So you, um, you're a young guy. You're about 34. You're starting out your career, which I think it's about within that age range, guys really start excelling and building their career, really kind of getting into it. So, and it's also really when you start looking at, for men at least, maybe settling down or looking at relationships a different way. It's not just a party. It's not just, hey, we're just looking to hook up or anything. It sounds, from my understanding, it's more of, as a millennial, you're at that phase of your life where you're like, okay, who might I be able to meet or get together with and possibly have something serious? Is that kind of an accurate statement of where you're at?
Yeah, I like my entire life, I've always just kind of settled for what was around me, or for who was around me. And yeah, now in my 30s, I've really started to be conscious of, trying to refine my search for, a more, like for wife material, I'm not interested in just having like a one night stand with like a girl anymore.
Right. So, what do you think? What role do you think has technology played in improving or hindering intimacy in millennial relationships?
Well, I don't know if this. I'm sure this stat leads to millennials as well, but
Hmm.
specifically with Gen Z men, only 45% of Gen Z men have ever initiated a date. Wait, I'm sorry. 45% of Gen Z men have never initiated a date in person, and
Mm.
like this definitely applies to me as well, because I could count on one hand all of the times that that I asked a girl out in person and she accepted, and a date became initiated. Most of the time, it was in Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge,
Hmm.
Plenty of Fish, or something like that. And
I think Rollo Tomasi calls those buffers.
yeah,
You always have a kind of a bit of a buffer to make things a little easier for yourself, I think.
yeah, and it's funny, like I have approach anxiety, and I think a lot of young men have approach anxiety, because I spend a lot of time with baby boomers,
Hmm.
and just like the way that they talk to each other is just so uninhibited by like fear of being offensive or something. Maybe that's this woke wave that like is makes us like walk on eggshells to talk to other people. But like I'm definitely like an overthinker, and I don't like to just talk to other humans, and that's a defect. It's something that I need to work to improve.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about, I kind of consider him a mentor of a certain degree, Michael Sartain, and how to get over approach anxiety. And you just got to go out and kind of do it, get yourself immersed into it. And there's, the Men in Action program has ways where it doesn't discourage cold approach, but there's also other ways to make it a much easier to have a higher success rate.
Yeah.
And I think you're not too far into the program, so I think when you get there, it's life altering. I think in a certain degree,
Yeah.
he doesn't just teach dating stuff. There's a whole lot of other stuff he teaches, but yeah, dealing with that cold approach anxiety is something he definitely touches on. But yeah, those were really some important stats for millennials. And when you talk about baby boomers, and that's my generation, and I would say it's more like an age thing where we just start, when you're getting into your 50s, you start, you kind of get the mindset where your last F you gave was last week type of thing. It's just like, I'm just done with trying not to please everybody. And it's just like, this is who I am, or you can like me or not, that kind of stuff. Totally get that, we have to be conscientious and sensitive of other people's feelings and, have at least some sort of empathy for others. But, there's a lot of, it sounds like, and I think it's pretty normal in general. I think all generations have this where for men, there's that approach anxiety. We get anxiety because we don't want to be rejected for our DNA. I mean, that's just as guys, that's just I think our innate, how we basically went through generations. Like the guy that got rejected didn't pass on his DNA and just basically faded away, right?
Yeah.
The guys that did, the ones that approached, got accepted and moved on. So being rejected, it's almost like saying, nope, I don't want your DNA, honey. Thanks, though, and they'll just move on. And it's really painful. But the more you get used to it, you kind of open it up, or you create a social circle like Michael teaches. The odds of getting rejected are lower and lower and lower, just because, from my understanding, if you're having this social circle of female friends, that trust aspect, that uncomfortable aspect is already kind of starting to fade away, right? They're like, oh, well, she and she and she and she are hanging out with him. There must be something safe with this guy, or there must be something going on. And then that's when the questions start being asked between girl to girl, and what's going on with this guy and what's happening, even from guy to girl and guy to the guy, Michael, who are you? Who, how did you do, that kind of stuff? How did you get like 20 girls to follow you into this thing? Well, let's hang out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But,
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm really, because I feel like I'm just like a few paces past the starting line. I'm really like curious as to how, like, it just feels like an insurmountable distance between where I am and where somebody like Michael is, where, you're able to just have, or not even Michael, it could be just like where someone like Tristan is, where someone like Luke is, and where you're able to just have this like abundant social circle, because right now I'm just, like I'm just a guy with an Instagram and, like 10 pictures on it, and like I'm sure it's not impossible. It just seems impossible when you're down at, like at square one,
Have you read the book The Game by Neil Strauss?
I have. I read it like so long ago. Maybe I need to, like, a refresher again.
Yeah, I mean, if you probably recall in the beginning of the book, he was talking about how I think he had a receding hairline and got scared with the cold approach and the whole thing. And it just sounded, from my understanding, he immersed himself so heavily and so deeply into the game, how to approach women and whatnot, that, everything else was just gone. Friends, school, everything else was just gone. It was just about learning approach, hanging out with mystery, that kind of thing. And I think after, like, even though it was heavily, heavily into it, after a year, it was just like, he had it, but it was just immersing himself into that, and just getting, it's almost, Michael describes it as, it's similar to when they take you out and they train you, what is it, in the military for like live fire, where you go underneath the bunker and then like live fire shot over you. And it's just like the scariest thing ever. And your heart rate hits up to like 170 or whatever it is. And you're like, oh my God, I'm super scared. I don't want to die. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then after, the repeated exposure to that, you just find out, oh, okay, after the 18th time or 20th time or however times they thought, you're just like having conversations while live fire is going over and your heart rate is like 80, 60. You're like, yeah, whatever, live fire. What are you having for lunch? I don't know what I'm having. Let's have a burger. I think he also used an example of, was it Neil Armstrong landing on the moon?
Mhm.
And the guy practiced so much. He was so in the zone when the time came. He was like literally running out of fuel. He had to land within seconds. If he didn't, everything would just be shot to hell. And apparently he landed it, with like just a couple seconds left of fuel, and his heart rate didn't get above 80, something like that. Where it's just like you've been exposed to it so much, it's not a problem anymore. And that's some of the stuff Michael teaches, I think. And I'm excited for you that you're in the program, that you're going to get immersed into this whole new realm of being able to talk to other people, other women, and you're going to get to the point where, like, I bet you in 5 years when we talk, you can be like, mm-hmm, yeah, I remember that. I remember that interview. Yeah, it's like, I'm completely different. So kind of diving a little deeper into relationships, what do you think are the emotional consequences of growing up in a generation that's been heavily influenced by divorce? Like my generation, I'm in my 50s, and I'm twice divorced. And after the second divorce, I'm like, my outcomes are definitely don't feel like what I'm putting into it. What am I doing wrong? So I just started taking accountability. I've got buddies I went to school with who are also divorced, and they've been just like decimated with a divorce. They're like, I feel like I've done everything right. I had to pay off my ex. I don't see my kids as much. And it's just like, oh. So for millennials, someone your age, 34,
Yep.
seeing what we've already gone through, my generation's already gone through, and the divorce rate and how our parents got divorced and being raised as by single mothers and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think are some of the consequences of seeing what I've gone through, setting this awesome example of how our relationships have been?
Honestly, disastrous. I think like on a societal level, it could.
Yeah.
I think I think by the time Gen Alpha is of marrying age, like we could be looking at like a fossil.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've started to like have this theory that marriage is like because we all know that the middle class is dwindling. Like it's society at large is starting to become the haves and the have-nots. And I think that kind of marriage is this like box where middle class men and middle class women can like exist, if all the factors are right. But poor men cannot afford marriage, and rich
Mm.
men cannot afford divorce. So like, and all of these divorces happening are just they're genuinely scaring men for obvious reasons, like financial ruin and like higher self deletion rates and all these things. And I think some guys who would be really good catches, really good fathers, are now saying, like, nah, like I don't want to risk my life for marriage, which is like fair, because I think like about 80% of divorces are initiated by women. So like, and you could be doing everything right. You could be a top tier man like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and still get divorced by your wife. And the divorce courts and the state are not gonna give you any mercy. They're gonna give custody of your children to this woman that like broke your heart and ripped it out of your chest. They're gonna take half of your empire and just give it to her. And like especially in like a situation like Bezos and Mackenzie Bezos. Like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine working my entire life to build up this like $1 billion empire, and for some judge to just give it away to the woman who just broke my heart. And then, so I could understand why men, like modern men, have like a refusal to get married.
So for yourself, and I mean, I don't know if you want to speak for your generation, but what are the things that you are thinking of doing or plan on doing if you meet that girl, meet that woman that you're like, wow, this could be the one. This is the one that we get along great. She has genuine desire for me, as Richard Cooper likes to say. She's a genuine burning desire for me. Fits, ticks off all the boxes, if you will. What would you think you are doing, and if you think your generation is doing this as well? Like, what are you doing to prepare to just ensure that that's a long, healthy relationship, to ensure that if hopefully hopefully not hopefully, but if something does happen, regrettably, if something does happen, what are you doing to prepare for, say, a split? Or I guess let's start with first, what would you do to prepare to solidify and make sure that divorce doesn't happen?
I'm like certainly no expert. I think basically it seems like, and I got this from Kevin Samuels, who we were talking about before the podcast.
Yeah.
Kevin Samuels told me that households that make above $200,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
like the divorce rate for those households drastically drops down. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can, I mean, it's obviously difficult. It's not easy to earn, $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could find a way to earn $200,000 a year or more, I think that would, greatly help my marriage, because then we're not arguing about money. Then if I want to buy a Mercedes Benz, I don't have the wife nagging in my ear about how that's not a wise expense. Like the number one thing that married couples fight about is money. So like if we can eliminate that, I think it'll help us be happier. And then maintaining attraction and comfort. Michael's always talking about that. And I forget who the one coach. Do you know who Coach Corey Waynes is? Corey Wayne.
I've never met him or never worked with him directly, but I've heard of him. Yeah.
He talks about like always courting your woman, and like I think a lot of guys, they get content. They maybe like stop being in shape, start growing out that like pot belly, and maybe stop like just they stop trying to attract their woman just because they have her. They don't think that they need to put in the work to secure her and keep her attracted to them. So I think being like I always say, remaining financially fit, remaining physically fit, having like an abundant social circle, because a lot of men, I don't know the exact statistic, but a lot of men over the age of 80 report that their wife is their only friend. So like, and I think Michael talks about it a lot, like that black box. You know what I mean? Like when you have one singular point of failure, it's like it could be disastrous if that one singular point fails. So I think just having abundance, having social abundance, having wealth, having physical fitness, and also it's important to me having a spiritual having like a spiritual purpose. Like I call it a God. Like some people aren't necessarily religious, or they don't believe in like one single deity, but there is a report that Christian married couples who pray together every single night, their divorce rate is less than 1%. So like that's the kind of relationship that I would like. And I've even I've even had that, like I was talking to like a Muslim girl, but she was more just like spiritual, and we got into the like habit of praying together every night. And
Mhm.
it at first it was really weird, but it really like made like going, like going to bed, I was just like I had this like sense of tranquility with the
Mm.
universe, and I think that like that can really bring couples together.
Sure. I think that sounds like a really interesting way of almost connecting and maybe providing a sense of vulnerability to her or between each other.
Mhm.
But you're also not being vulnerable to the point of where you're like crying in front of her and just saying, these
Yeah,
are the things I'm just struggling with. Like, this is what I'm
yeah,
working
yeah.
on. Lord, please, help me get the strength. I
Mhm.
think there's something of value of that. I really like how you're thinking ahead already to know that once you get married, that's not when a guy stops
Mhm.
being attractive. I think it's incredibly important. And I'm guilty of this where, oh, once you get married, oh, that's all I need to do. That's it. I'm good. And I think part of the issue with that is, and again, myself included, you start thinking, oh, I'm good. I just start coasting and I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to really court her anymore. I don't need to really show many attraction triggers. I don't need to be as attractive as I was. I got a ring on her finger and I'm good to go. And I think Orion Taraban even talks about this for a little while. It's like a lot of guys will just halt or stop or just, start coasting. And I like to say, if you're coasting, you're going downhill, and you need to start taking that tough challenge of looking at yourself. And I'm still doing that now. It's just, I'm struggling with this or that or the other thing. And it's like, I really need to figure out, to me, I'm like, I really want to kind of figure out the why. So my endpoint, the output I get is going to be a little different. So my inputs have to change. And to change those inputs, I have to change my mindset. That's kind of where I start coming from. But I think it's
My
really, yeah, go ahead.
But in Alcoholics Anonymous, we have a whole bunch of acronyms for God, like
Hmm.
group of drunks, gift of desperation, good orderly direction. But my favorite is grow or die. And my
Mm,
grand sponsor says, like, you're always either moving closer to a drink or further away from a drink. There's no such thing as like spiritual maintenance. There's spiritual growth and spiritual decay, but you're not like if you're stagnant, you're falling behind.
yeah. So it really is kind of it that coasting is it perseveres through marriage and it's really I think how can you lead in a relationship when you're just kind of coasting along?
Mhm.
It's easy to follow behind someone who's going downhill, but then sooner or later the person following you is going to be like, where are we going? What are we doing here? Should I? And then the person's going to be, why am I following this guy? Why am I
And
following if he's just coasting downhill? It's
I
like,
know
oh,
I know you love Orion Taraban, and
mm-hmm.
I love him too. My favorite thing that he talks about is as passengers and captains,
Yep,
and like
love it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like men cannot be passengers on this ship of on this relationship. Like we can only either be standing on the dock or we can be captains. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a captain. I imagine you probably do too.
Yeah, I
And,
really want to. I try and practice that every day. I talk to my girl about. We basically have an understanding of where I've asked her. I'll come up with some options to do whatever. Please provide me with some options, and I'll make a decision on where we go and what we do. I'll try and plan ahead for like, okay, for the next time, if you want to go do this or this, or if you want to stay in this part of town or this, go to dinner wherever. Like here, we've already got this place planned. Just kind of like planning ahead, showing her I'm taking initiative, showing her I can provide, decision making skills, showing her I still respect her in public, and showing some way of protecting her in public by kind of taking her hand and making sure that I'm the one between the street and she's between me and the building. So anything, I mean, just those little things of just being a little more conscientious of her or like it's how I kind of think of just starting out with some leadership skills to show her that that I will make decisions that are good for both of us. And I'll start doing some things to show you that I'm protective over you. And it's like, she's very appreciative of that, and she respects it. And it's really starting to work well. But I think where you're going with the whole, I can't coast, is a really good way of looking ahead for your future relationship.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to talk about in regards to that, but I'm just thinking about what are the risks and rewards of, if you wanted to prioritize your career over relationship, what would be some of those risks and rewards for doing so, especially for a guy like yourself, like a millennial guy. If you're getting in a relationship, how is it if you're going to be like, hey, babe, it's workout, sleep, or it's just like, it's my work, however you want to take that question.
Well, we as men are actually truly privileged that our biological window is so much longer than women's. So, and like Myron Gaines talks about like the candy store analogy, like when men hit like 35, 40, and they're finally sitting on top of the world for the first time. Women's free ticket to the candy store is already like expired, and so like so like we're going through different stages at different periods of life, but like basically like the experience of of like a 40 or a 45-year-old man who's like really hitting his peak earning potential is basically equivalent to like a 21 or a 22-year-old woman who's like just getting out of maybe just graduating college, and she's on top of the world. So and it's very unique how like career trajectories are impacted by that. So like what tends to happen for women is as they prioritize their career, their dating pool shrinks. Like the higher on the corporate ladder they go, their pool shrinks. But for men, it's the complete opposite. The higher that men go on the corporate ladder, their dating pool expands. So, I mean, my genuine advice for any man would be to just keep climbing that ladder. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the corporate ladder. You could go into business for yourself, be a sole proprietor. Honestly, I think that's probably like the best option for most people is to, like start your own business. It doesn't even have to be an amazing business. Like I'm trying to get my friend to start any kind of business at all. It could be, like teaching other people how to gamble on sports, teaching other people how to play like Pokemon Go, just anything that you have a little bit of experience in, just become a leader, become an influencer, become a content creator, and you can start writing off all these things on your taxes. I just took a couple months ago, I took a trip to Omaha, Nebraska to see Warren Buffett announce his retirement in person. And that was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And the best part is I can declare all of my travel, all of my lodging on my taxes. And like when April comes, I'm looking forward to like a big tax break,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I think, it's awesome that you're planning ahead and you put things in place to start thinking that way. I think it's very, very important for men to have a purpose. You just described your purpose. And even before relationships, before getting serious with a woman, I think a guy has to have, even guys getting out of relationships, if they've just bottomed out, they're exiting a relationship, they're brokenhearted, it would be, what are you doing to start over? What is your purpose? Find your why.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yeah, and
Great book.
like when we talk about all this like self-deletion, I would imagine not having a purpose has got to be the biggest reason why some, people are choosing to self-delete. Like, if no matter what happens, if your mother passes away, if your cat passes away, if you get your heart broken by the love of your life, if you have a purpose, that should be enough, like enough to keep you going, even
Yeah.
in the worst times.
It'll give you something to wake up and start, give you the motivation to start not start, but keep going. Yeah. There's some stat, and it's in general, and I believe it was said because men are more violent in general. Men are more likely to self-delete. Like, it's 4 times as high versus women. After divorce, it's 8 to 10 times as high as women. So I think you're correct. I mean, maybe we could create a study on this, but reasons as to why men self-delete after divorce, I think a big part of that might be because they don't have a purpose, and they're probably so devastated from the divorce. I've lost her social circle, which was my social circle. I lost the house. I lost the kids. I lost the dog. I'm struggling at work. I might lose my job. Those things are just, I mean, the stressors compounding that. Oh, I have to go to court to give her all this money that I earned. I'm the breadwinner in this relationship, and now I have to pay out, all this, and I'm the one that's devastated. I'm the one that's heartbroken. I'm just, completely destroyed. What purpose do I have now?
Oh, and I have such. I understand for the, like the baby boomers, and even like what's the generation before the baby boomers? Are they called like the greatest generation or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I understand for that generation, why alimony existed, but this is like
Yeah.
2025. Like, there should not be a single dollar of alimony paid out moving forward. Like, if I'm sorry, like, spousal support, no, like, get an effing job. You know what I mean? Like, you are a strong and powerful, independent woman who is fighting in court for your independence. Now, you know what you need to do? You need to go get a job. Like, you're not gonna rely on me, who you just divorced, to like pay your bills. I think that is so wrong.
Yeah, I've heard stories, you know, where guys, where they're breadwinners, are devastated, and now a lot of women are realizing the same thing when they're the breadwinners and they're going through divorce. They're realizing that they're now having to pay alimony, and I think it's coming as a reality check. I can't remember Kevin Samuels once mentioned the movie star. I can't remember her name, but I think she went
Kelly Clarkson, or
It wasn't her. Gosh, I can't remember her name. I think she's
Gabrielle
gone.
Union,
Sorry?
maybe Gabrielle Union.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
I think I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, where he was talking, where Kevin Samuels was talking about, she's gone through 3 divorces. I think she had to pay alimony to all of them because she was the breadwinner, and she's very bitter about it. She's angry, and it's like, yeah, the way things are set up now, if you're a breadwinner, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, you're going to have to probably pay alimony or maybe even child support, versus the other party, And kind of back to your point about when women are going to school and then they graduate and they've got the degree, and they're going into those jobs that are paying, 6 figures, maybe even $250,000 a year. They're looking at those guys that are, making just as much or higher. The whole hypergamy issue of where, well, the pool of men that make less than me are kind of out there. We all want to make sure the guy is going to be stable, so he's got to make at least as much as me because this is a lifestyle I now want. And what's being created is now, well, I'm going to settle for this guy. He's a safe bet. And if he doesn't excel above her pay rate and they hang out and she gets sick of it, they said they go as far as getting married and have a couple kids and she's still making bank and he's not, that's going to end up with her paying alimony and child support to him because he didn't catch up to her or whatever, but because of women, how they naturally are, it's, they're always looking for a crossing up, and if they if they marry kind of down, there's that risk of, well, I mean, it's not even an attraction trigger for women. Like once they find out that, oh, you make less than me, it's almost like, then they start kind of pulling back. And that's fine. You know, that's their prerogative. And it's, to me, I look at it as, okay, if we step up our game, our pool of women is going to increase significantly, kind of like what you were saying, like exponentially will increase. If we increase our annual income, the pool of women that are going to be, you know, attracted to us might increase, you know, exponentially. Obviously we have to do other things, and we don't want to lead with our wallet, but putting ourselves in a position of financial security is definitely an attraction trigger because you're able to provide and protect and all those kinds of things. Men are willing to go into McDonald's and pick up the clerk who's pretty and marry her. That is not replicated by a woman. Yeah. Women will not do that. So, you know, it's great that they're going out. It's great that they're earning degrees. It's great that they're doing something with themselves. But I think less and less women are aware of the risks. I shouldn't even say a risk, but, you know, there's going to be issues on finding the guy you want versus a guy that you're desired to, you know, attracted to. You know, I mean, what you're going to accept, what you're going to maybe marry might be a little different than what's available to you.
When you're talking about the McDonald's thing, like it's so true. Like I can't even tell you how many baristas or like pizzeria waitresses that I have like hit on, and genuinely.
See, you've got cold approach. You're telling me you don't have cold approach? What are you talking about?
But it's like it's never successful. Like I've been turned down by all of these like minimum wage, you know.
You know what that is, man? You know what that is, Chris? It's practice. Just practice.
I need to increase my exposure, but I love you might not love him, but do you know who like John Zerka is?
That sounds familiar. Not too familiar.
He's like one of those like, you know, he's one of those like hairy knuckle dragon like alpha men, you know, like, but
yeah, that's funny.
He's on the Fresh and Fit podcast and he's telling all these girls, you know, like you know, like I'll ask this whole table, like, which one of you would date a McDonald's worker? And like,
oh yes,
no,
yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
And he's like, that's what's different about men and women. You know, like every man here would date a barista. You know what I mean? He's like, that means that every one of your exes was better than you. And it's like, and like, we don't want to like talk about like value in the eyes of the Lord, and you know, like because all people are worthy of love and stuff like that. But like if you can like tangibly quantify value, you know, like women like a man who is superior to them, you know? Mm-hmm.
Well, it goes back to, I think it's evolutionary psychology where to me, it's understandable why women want to be with someone that can provide, which would lead to better protection. You know, that's why they want a man that, you know, a guy that's more muscular with a V shape, right? Provide, protect, you know, give provisions, all those kinds of things. And if they're not up to what they're currently earning, it's going to be less desirable. And it's just from my understanding, it's just from how we as human beings have survived. So if a woman back 10,000, 20,000, whatever years ago, millennia, you know, long time ago, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, where she's with one man, he goes off to go hunt and get whatever, doesn't come back. What is she supposed to do? She's either can die off, try and hunt for herself, or get together with another guy that's going to, you know, help her. Or it's going to be like, this guy is the chief of the tribe, the group, and he's going to have this many women because he can provide and protect this many women, like multiple women, you know, and they're going to be like, that's fine. You know, you've heard about that where was it hypergamy, I think it is, versus hypergamy. Like hypergamy is where a man has multiple wives, I believe. Okay. And just through Evo Psych, it's like they're going to go with the man with the best option because he can protect me from being killed, literally. And I think that's still it's ingrained, obviously, just like guys are, you know, we want to protect and provide. All those things are just also ingrained in us. But when now the women are going out and getting educated and doing really well for themselves, again, like Scott Galloway, doing really well for themselves, but they're also putting themselves in the limited number of, they put a pool of men that they're going to be desirable with has now shrunk and has become more limited. It's going to become more and more difficult. What is it? People making over $100,000 a year in America, it's like 20% of Americans.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and then we can go through the delusional calculator of is he 6 foot? Is he fit? Is he making like $150,000 a year? Just those things would kind of reduce that pool of men. Oh, then if you include the age, and then it's not even talking about personality, but you're also talking, once you do all those things, you're looking at like less than 1% or something like that. I don't remember the specific stat, but it can just, really, really reduce the pool of guys that they want to be with or attracted to. And then that's when you see, well, I married him because it's a safe bet. I have a lot of friends where this happened to, but I want to get with this guy who's exciting and provides what he doesn't, type of thing. That's where you see cheating, or like maybe even women leaving their husbands for somebody who's just like a male stripper or something.
Have you ever seen the movie She's Out of My League?
I think so. Maybe a while ago, but.
So what ends up happening is in the movie, and it's obviously Hollywood, so it's not totally realistic. I suspect if that were in real life, he'd blow his chance with this like smoking hot bombshell.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets super insecure, and at like some point of the movie, like every rom-com, about 75% of the way through the movie, it all falls apart. And he asks her, what are you doing with me? And she goes on this like spiel of like, I've had my heart broken in the past. I've been with that super attractive apex male, and like it always ended in heartbreak. And so you were the safe option. And like she says it, and it's like almost like this like reassuring compliment. But like I think to any guy who's like deprogrammed, they're gonna be like that's like a slap in the face if a woman ever says anything like that. Like, I'm settling for you because you're the safe option,
There was some video I saw, it was similar to something about that, where this girl posts this conversation she had with her boyfriend, and she said something to the effect of, "You're the kind of guy I would not sleep with on the first date." And it was like her boyfriend, and I'm guessing, and I'm going to probably be very, very wrong with this. They were together for several weeks, if not a few years or something. And she said that, got pissed. He got pissed when she said that, wasn't speaking to her. And she's like, I think I really fucked up. And people in the comments were like, yes, you did. Yeah. I mean, that's for you. I would make you wait. For this guy over here, I won't. And to guys' brains, that is like, why would they get, that's really confusing for men. So, I think Michael Sartain has a great way of telling people if there's something he sees that it's like, okay, this is what's happening. Let's reverse engineer it and figure out what is the cause of that? What's going on with that? And something like that, where it's like, well, why would you sleep with this guy on the first date, but not this guy? And kind of to your point, it's like, this guy is a safe bet. This guy is a quickie. Like, I don't want to have a relationship with anybody. I'm just really super horny. He's super sexy. I'm going to do it with him. This guy has a good job. He's been working there for like 5 years. It looks like he's got an up and coming career. He's a 9-to-5er. He treats me really well. He treats his family really well. He treats kids really well. He volunteers. He does all these things that are just like, okay, these are nice, safe attraction triggers.
Yeah. And I think I actually do put a lot of blame on men for creating this like dichotomy, because I've talked to a lot of men, and a lot of men say like explicitly, I would lose respect for a woman if she were to like give it up too early. And like I've never thought that way. Like I've started my last relationship was like we slept together on the first date, and like I admired that she wasn't going to string me along. And she was, like, she felt we had a connection. There was obviously genuine burning desire, and like we slept together on the first date. And then I also blame the the bottom third of men who are just gonna like tolerate that type of behavior. Like I'm not saying that a woman has to have sex with me on the first date. Like that's to some women they have too much like they treasure their own body too much for that, and that's fair. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you and if you have a standard for how much you need to know a person before you have sex with them, who am I to like say that that's
Mm-hmm.
stupid?
Right.
But I maybe I'm just too like transactional and materialistic from my years of investing in the stock market, but like I'm only gonna buy at the bottom of like the bid ask spread. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna go out here and buy stock XYZ of this young woman's body
Mm-hmm.
at $500 a share when some other guy last month bought it at 250 a share. Like I would just feel like a sucker playing that
Mm-hmm.
game. So I have a personal thing where like I want to know how quickly a young lady gives it up, or I want to know what is the quickest a young lady ever gave it up, and that's how long I'll wait. I'm not gonna wait months when some
Mm-hmm.
other guy had to buy her a screwdriver.
Right. I think that book, Why Women Have Sex, by it's Cindy Meston and David Buss,
Mhm.
right? It's one of the recommended books. And I think it describes like 237 ways women will have, or reasons as to why women will have sex with men. And I think David Buss said, it was either David Buss or Michael, said something to the effect of, and for guys, it would be a pamphlet. It would be like three things on it. That's all we need. It's like, yeah, well, is she breathing? That's a good start. We go from there, right? Um, it could be a plethora of reasons why a woman would sleep with a guy on the first date, and then a plethora of reasons why the same woman make another guy wait. They want to be respected and whatnot, but guys hear, well, you gave it up really fast to him. Why would you not treat me the same way? And they're like, well, I want to preserve my purity. It's not like they would say this, but it's like, I want you to respect me more. Whereas this guy, I didn't give a crap if he respected me or not. It was going to be a one nighter, and I'm going to just ditch him afterwards. And it's like, okay, you know, but it's super confusing for guys when they hear stuff like that. But anyway, um, anything else? Anything else you want to add? I mean, we talked about some really good things like how we can improve or basically plan ahead for our relationships. How are we prioritizing a career over risks or whatever for future relationships. What are some of the emotional consequences of growing up in a generation that has been heavily influenced by divorce? Anything else?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so how old are you exactly? 50.
I'm 56. I'm going to turn 57 in a couple months.
So is there any like if you could if let's pretend that I am you at 34, what advice would you give yourself to make the next 20 years easier and to amplify your good results?
Yeah. So when I was your age, I graduated from school. I had the beginnings of a career, but I think my focus was more so in relationships rather than the focus on having a purpose or having a side gig or having a job or understanding how I operate and understanding how women operate, basically human nature. What I would say is basically unengineer yourself from how you grew up. Start learning about how you treat people and how people are treating you. It's about understanding your boundaries, understanding how women think and operate, their instinctive nature, i.e., evolutionary psychology, you know, because once I started learning about that, everything kind of started clicking into place. Continue to work on myself. And that means not just eating right, it means working out, getting enough sleep, you know, basically treating yourself right. So it's focusing on yourself and doing the right things, being a man of integrity, having a sense of empathy for others, but no expectations. If I'm going to do something for somebody, don't expect anything in return. Absolutely not. You know, pay attention to how people treat you, like their actions versus their words. Is this somebody you're hanging out with a lot versus somebody you're hanging out with very little, you know? But really, I think the biggest point would be to have a purpose, like we talked about earlier, is start focusing on a purpose and how you can kind of continue to keep that purpose in your world. You know, if things kind of get disruptive, you know, things fall apart, you'll always have that purpose in line. And then, you know, kind of go from there. Surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed. A good friend's going to tell you where you're fucking up. A bad friend's going to tell you to your face you're doing great, and then behind your back tell you you're fucking up. You know, that good friend will tell you, you know, you're fucking up, but to everybody else will be like, he's killing it. He's killing it. But directly to you, you'll be like, no, you're fucking up. So yeah, I think it's really, really important to have guys surround themselves with people that are going to help lift them up, not take them down.
Yeah. And this is this is the number one reason why I joined MOA. Like, do I want the smoking hot, looking girls on my arm? Of course. Like, do I want do I want all that stuff? Yeah. But what I want more than anything is to have like a network of highly successful men, who are, supporting me and encouraging me to grow. And I just saw, a great quote the other day. If you hang around 4 fat people, you'll become the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you hang around 4 poor people, you'll become the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
But like conversely, if you hang around 4 millionaires, you'll eventually become the 5th. And like, so do you have any advice on cultivating that type of like a network, and like maybe more so on like on exiting that like group of fat people, on exiting that group of like poor people? Like, what is the most graceful way to kind of like love them from afar?
There's only a group of like a place where you can join with like-minded. Men of action. Michael Sartain has all those answers. I can give you somewhat of an uneducated guess. I can give you suggestions on what I did, which was very poor. Basically, just I had growing up. So for me, growing up, it was a thing of, to survive, I became very passive aggressive. To survive, I became very withdrawn. Mm-hmm. As a little kid. Like, I'm thinking back when I'm like 6 years old, 8 year olds, just the things I had to do to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to survive. That crap carried over into my adult life and adult relationships, and it sucked. It just ruined professional relationships. It ruined personal relationships, and it's terrible. One thing that I have learned, one of the most important things I did learn from Michael is, don't avoid confrontation. When you avoid confrontation, you're going to create chaos. With that being said, there's ways to address people in a very kind manner to where, you just stop. You're going to start separating yourself. And maybe it doesn't even need to be addressed. If it's like, okay, I'm just spending a lot more time here, I'm busy doing this, unless they come to you and go, what the fuck? What's up, dude? You don't want to hang out anymore? What's going on? And you go, hey, I've developed a purpose and I'm putting a lot of energy into that. I still dig you, man, but this is what I'm doing with myself, and I'm just looking to have people support me in that. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll support you. What are their actions? What are their actions over what are they saying? And I think that goes into relationships too. If you're with a girl, if you're with a woman who's like, oh yeah, I love you and I care for you and I miss you. And then you're like, well, what did you do last night? And she's like, that's none of your business. I went out with some friends. You don't need to know anything else. It's like, well, who were you with? Well, I know you went out. You're with your friends, but you won't tell me anymore. It's like, why? It's just like, okay, let's take away the words and look at the actions. And so if you're with a group of people who are, let's take away the words and how are they treating you? Are they ridiculing you for what you're doing? Like, do you have guys that are like, your fucking podcast is bullshit? Or are there guys going, dude, I'm excited to see where you're going to go with this. And are they bringing value? It's kind of what we talked about earlier is, I got to find a purpose, I got to figure out what I need to do with myself. And this is and you kind of this off. I think for a guy, if they're looking for a purpose, one of those things is to provide value for other men. For those guys that are doing it, how can I provide this person value from what I'm doing? Am I able to provide this guy with like, oh, well, I know how to do this and this and this. I see you're lacking in that. I can help you out with that. And then you're going to be instantaneously valuable to that person. If you're a man of integrity, if you're a man that just expects nothing in return, if you're a man that's honest, it's going to, that rep will carry you over because of your actions. People are going to be like, blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of like, okay, we're going to move you out, from my inner circle or, really close friends that you could trust with your life to another circle where it's like, okay, we're acquaintances, we're good friends, to another circle, it's like, I got to work with this person. So blah, blah, to another circle to where it's like, I might say hi, but I know who you are. And then there's like the fifth circle. It's like, probably not. I'll shake your hand, give you a fist bump, but that's kind of stuff. And that's from Michael. Michael's program isn't obviously just a dating, I'm going to teach you a cold approach. It's more than just, developing relationships. It's a mindset, and I think it's separating out. I think Kevin Samuels even said something like that, but separating out the people that support you versus discourage you is going to be very, very hard. If it's something where these people that have discouraged you have been a part of your life for a very long time. But if you're doing something with yourself and they're still discouraging you, it's probably because they're envious.
Yeah, and I've already noticed, like, I've only been in Men of Action for like, I don't know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks or something like that. But I've already noticed, like, just from posting these, like Instagram pictures where I'm in this, like, rich mahogany library, or I'm in this like luxury hotel on a balcony and stuff, I've already noticed, like my old childhood friends saying things like, like, you've changed, you're like, I don't even recognize you anymore and stuff like that. And
Good.
I think it's like a Jay-Z quote. Jay-Z dealt with this a lot when he was like on the come up, and they were like, you've changed, like, the success, this money has changed you. And like Jay-Z said, like, yeah, like, that's why I did it. You think I did all this to stay the same? Like, I wanted, like, that's the essence of growth. Like, I'm not content where I am right now. And maybe I'm sure that's not the best. My cortisol levels are probably, like, pretty high, and like, I deal with like a lot, and I'm just never content where I'm at. But like, I kind of cherish that ambition in myself. Like, I'm going to continue to strive for better no matter where I'm at.
Change is the most difficult thing, I think, for a person to do. If you're like, I have this mindset, this is what I've lived with for most of my life, and it's not suiting me well. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Like, I did these things to survive as a kid, but it's not conducive to my life now. Yeah. And it took me a long, long ass fucking time to realize that. And it's really unhealthy. But it's
yeah. The biggest thing with that, like, that like sums up that in one thing is, like, when we were kids, what is the one thing all of our parents told us? Don't talk to strangers. But like, as an adult, you cannot live that type of life. Like, you will be isolated, you will be alone. And, like Kevin Samuels always says, it's like his biggest, like, insult that he tells to people is like, I even got it on here. He says, buy a dog and die alone.
No, buy a dog and die alone.
Yeah, that's where it's like a refusal to accept, observable reality. Buy a dog, die alone. If you think that you're all that great and you've got this list of requirements for your man, the person you haven't met yet, and expectations for this man, it's probably not going to happen. Buy a dog, live alone. Start buying boxed wine, and we're going to start investing in that because that's what's going to sell. That's what's going to be blowing it. But yeah, change really is hard, and that's why anybody going through what you're doing, what I'm doing, starting something new takes a level of guts. We have to, it's like you're looking at what you're doing is you're putting yourself out there for everyone to critique. And you're like, you know what? I know I'm going to be looked at like this. I'm exposing myself. I'm making myself vulnerable, but I know I need to make a change in my life. And I just need to continue with it. And you'll find people that are going to support you on the way, like Michael. And you're going to find that people are going to be like trying to knock you back down. It didn't sound like your friend was saying anything too negative, just you've changed. And you're going, yeah, I have. It's almost like, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, it's what I'm working on doing. I appreciate you acknowledging that. It's like, oh, it's becoming evident. The next thing is, is this person going to support your change, or is it going to become like a source of envy for this person? And hopefully they'll support you and encourage you to keep going. Cause we get to a point, at my age, it came to a point of like, you don't need to be discouraged about people who are successful. You want to applaud them and be like, how can I learn from them? You want to reverse engineer. How did they get successful? And what did they do? And how did they make the relationships happen? Because it's something that's like, wow, I see that happening. How did they get there versus that son of a bitch? How did he get there? You instead of being very envious, being like, so what did they do? And then going, how can I start doing that? Not like, oh, their endpoint was so extreme. It'd be like trying to say, well, Dan Bilzerian has $100 million and multiple women chasing him and throwing themselves at them or at him, and then instead of looking at how he did it, it's just going, well, that son of a bitch. Being just super envious. It's like, well, how did he start doing that? What was the very first connect? And it could be just something as straightforward as, find a purpose and bring value to others. Whatever that might be. It's like, where are things lacking? What can you learn that's going to bring value to others? How can I help others, succeed?
Yeah. What's his book? I know that's on the reading list too, and I read it, and it was great. Like I don't necessarily want his life, but there are components of his life that I absolutely like want to implement into my own. And the setup, that's what it's called. The setup.
I was going to say, yeah, I think it's called the setup. There it is. Yeah, it's the setup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his life is extraordinary, and it was like, this is how I'm intending to do this. He was very intentional in doing it, but he understand attraction triggers, and he's just going to that at the nth degree, and it's one way of it's an example. It's an extreme example, but it's an example of how a man understood evolutionary psychology, attraction triggers, and what he needed to do to level up. And it's just, if you can surround yourself with people that are, you're like, I'm wanting to level. I'm doing these things. I want to provide value to you. How can I'm able to do this and this for myself and for you, and then I think it's I just kept rambling on, but having no expectations, doing things for other people without any expectations. I think you talked about, you do volunteer work at your church.
Yeah, like I get paid for it because like it's my job to take
I see. Okay.
our students through, but my student doesn't get paid for it, and I mean like they're awesome workers, and like I said, I'm the drill sergeant boot camp instructor of my company, so like while some of the other kids are doing nothing, I'm like pushing my guys to, drag in, like 40-pound trash bags of clothes and stuff like that. And like, I'm really busting their ass to like develop like a hardworking bone in their body. And, you
And
know,
are they appreciative of it?
I don't know if the students are appreciative. Their parents and my supervisors are appreciative of it.
How old are the kids?
My oldest is 30,
Oh,
32
okay.
or 33.
So they're adults. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, at least you're trying to be a coach for these people, and hopefully they can take something away from that, saying, at least some self-discipline, very minimum, but you're at least out there, you're doing it, you're trying to provide for somebody else. I think, there is a lot to be said about giving to others without any expectations, doing volunteer work, doing, raising funds for charity, all these kinds of things where you're, helping animals out, adopting an animal. Michael Sartain is really good about go and adopt an animal, save a life. It's an animal's life. You're going to go save it. I mean, just these things where you're providing for others without anything, no expectations in return is very fulfilling as well. So if you have a purpose in life, you're doing things for others with no expectations, that's a great way to start doing stuff. Those are attraction triggers for women, at least.
Before we wrap up, I just want to. I think it's like an ancient Chinese proverb or something like that. But it's like the essence of true generosity is planting seeds for trees that will provide shade that you'll never lay under, or something like that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's really good. Well, no, I appreciate your time, Chris. This has been a great discussion. I wish you the best of success. If there's anything I can do for you, please reach out. I think you're going to kill it personally. And I'm very excited to see you in 5 years to show, this is our discussion here 5 years ago. And look at me now, yo.
Yeah, I think you and I are gonna, and also check out Ravine on the Goat Show. He's another podcast that I had the privilege of being on, and I'll do a little plug for you coming onto my podcast on what did we say it was, September 7th?
Yep, I think something like that. Yeah.
Guys, make sure you check out Glen Gilbert on the Good Faith podcast, September 7th, and thank you so much for having me. This was great, and I'm going to be watching your channel too, and I'm sure both of us are going to grow.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited about our future, but thanks again, Chris.
All right, thanks.